I'm your host, Denise Cardenas, and I am a business and social media strategist, and honestly, just a woman learning to trust herself more deeply every day. So, in this space, we will talk about what it really means to feel safe in your body, in your voice, in your business, and in your life. So, there will be no perfect answers, just real conversations with people who are walking their own path and choosing to trust themselves along the way. So, let's get started with this episode. All right, Melissa, I'm so happy you're here. I knew when I made this shift of direction in my podcast, because when I reached out to you, I was thinking of my older podcast, was more about sensuality. You're like, oh, I don't know if that's really fits me. And when I made this shift that I wanted, I'm like, you know what? I feel like I want to make this shift of sharing people's stories of when they started to choose themselves, when they started to make the effort to actually start trusting themselves. You know, it's as I say it out loud, it sounds so weird, but it's so true.
Right. No, I get what you mean by that.
Yeah, like
It
people,
does sound weird, but it's also a human condition.
yes. And it was such a huge revelation for me this year. And I think that's why I made this transition of why things just ended up kind of like a cycle of the same pattern for me.
No, me too.
It
Like
was
a deepening of an understanding that you already had, but it's like a new level of consciousness on this same pattern. Yeah.
Yes. And I just remember like, oh my God, all of this shit is happening because I'm not trusting myself. I'm not choosing myself.
Yeah.
And this is where it all unraveled. And then when I'm like, I need to reach out to Melissa again because I was like, when I was in your podcast, I was like, I love when we were talking, I love how, besides the honest, but it's more like you share the messy middle part of everything. Because
Yeah. Thank
when
you
you
for
get
that.
to
I
this
really do try to. I really
and
do
I
try.
and I love that because one of the biggest things is that for me is like, you know, when you hear stories, they're always like, you know, I was here, they share where you were at, and they just get to, oh, and then I just jumped to this beautiful life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But trust me, when I was going through this process, I was like, there was a messy ass middle that I was like, oh my God, is this fucking normal? Like, why am I
Right.
feeling this way? So with the podcast, I'm like, I really want to hear the messy middle. Like, I want to hear like, you know, what it was like for you in that part of the area because I feel like that is the biggest shift for people where like you're not alone. Like this is such a long
Right.
journey and it's not always beautiful after you figure something out, right?
Right. Oh God.
Yeah.
And that
So,
we've been on the same path
uh,
because this has been my new understanding too. So I want to say this first
mhm,
because our recording has stayed with me. And it was that last few minutes where I said, we were really bonding over this like need for more. Like
mhm,
it was like our purpose.
mhm.
And we don't know how to say it without sounding not humble, like we're bragging,
I
like
got
we're
chilled. Yes, I remember that
delusional.
moment. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know, that really stayed with me. And it was you. The connective point was when you were like, "Thank you so much for saying that." Because I
Mhm.
said, "No, you just know you were meant for more," and you were like, "Thank you." You felt seen, and I could feel that.
Oh,
And
yes. I remember that
so
moment. Yes.
yeah, and I don't I it's that's a bond for life right there. But it makes me like as I've watched you, because I keep up with my people,
Mhm. Yeah,
like
I
you're
know
in my
you do,
image,
and I
like
love
you're my
that about you.
babies,
And I
like
appreciate
everyone's
that.
yeah. And so as I've watched you get to where you are right now, it's a beautiful thing to see from the outside, from that conversation to now. Because I'm just gonna be really fucking honest right now. I'm sorry, I didn't ask if we could cuss on here.
Oh, you could totally
Uh,
cuss. Yes.
I was like, in that conversation and in watching you immediately following, I was like, you are not doing what you're supposed to do. Like I was
Mhm,
like, that's not the area for you. Like you have
mhm.
this, you know what I mean? Like you have
Yeah.
this light that's ready to be a beacon for others. And you were in more of like, correct me if I'm wrong, like a marketing type
Mhm.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But I was like, you have a story
yeah.
too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
anyway, all that to say, I mean,
I
you were
appreciate
doing
that.
great in that you were, but I knew it wasn't aligned. I was like, you're going to get there though, because we all do.
Yeah, we
And
all
I'm
do.
even doing this too, where I'm like, what direction? What
Hmm.
is the one thing I want to focus on? What, like, and I'm like, well, no fucking wonder I'm not getting what I'm asking for because I don't even know what I want, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Anyway, not to
I
derail
know, and I
everything,
really
but
appreciate that. I mean, because yeah, like when I reach to this point, and like who knows? This is just the beginning, right?
absolutely.
But it's just
It
like,
could
yeah,
change again, and it
yeah.
can.
And trust me,
Absolutely.
this is my third podcast attempt and that I've been trying to do because I'm like, I always knew I had a story, I just didn't know how to present it. And then like
Yeah.
this huge shift that I had is like I got more confident in it,
That's
right? So,
and that's how you know too that it's just a better thing
hmm.
because and I even see a place for the sensuality and because
Oh yeah,
like in this
it's all inter.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, instead
exactly.
of specifically
Hmm.
that move because I keep thinking of our girl Yonori. God, I love that woman.
Hmm.
And
I learned so much from her.
just as a human, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
and then, one day she said, "Hey, are you open to feedback?" And I was like, "Please," because I just she had some nugget, she's like, she sat and did a video tutorial for me on how to create podcast story highlights. That was a big deal to me because no one
yeah.
at that point had sat and helped me with anything.
Right, right.
Anything. And so, and I've told you like my brand, I decided part of that would be helping others. As a matter of fact, I'm starting a network that I'm going to invite you to. But
Okay, perfect.
so it's just meant so much. And I think like I see people like Yonori fitting in this space too, because it's all of it,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah,
all of
it's
that
all of it.
feminine love and so anyway,
100%. No,
not to
totally.
derail everything you wanted to talk about.
No, totally fine. I love it. I love our conversations because I always feel every time we talk, like you just like it's just a natural conversation, and that's my whole goal with this. So let's kind of dive into you. Like, I would love to hear your story of like your shift or maybe your season where there was like a focal point for you where you're like, something doesn't feel right anymore. I need to make a shift. You don't like, and there's a lot of times, personally, I feel like it's so like out in the outside, it's a perfect, like, it's not logical why you're feeling this way,
Yeah.
right? So when was there a time for you where you finally realized, oh my God, I need to finally start trusting myself. I need to start choosing me, and this is a reason why this is happening.
Well, okay. So
And I
it's
know that
hard.
maybe not a moment, but just the current season
Yeah,
of that
yeah, yeah,
moment.
yeah. I never know how far back to go, but truly what
Mm,
happened with me was I had this crazy childhood that I spent my entire adulthood trying to heal from without any real information on how to do that. 2016, 17, I get my first bite of information from the holistic psychologist about trauma,
mhm,
that we can all have it, da, 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 da. And I'm amazed and blown away. And like, it's manna from heaven, just these little drops of information she's giving me about like regulation and blah, blah, blah. Because
mhm,
up to this point, and after, but like,
mhm,
I just thought I was mean. And that was
mhm,
conditioned and programmed in me because I was always very reactive because I had an extensive history of trauma and I was being raised by a narcissist caregiver who loved to trigger me and then hated the response.
mhm,
Um but I really just was like, I'm mean, I'm a bad person. And even after learning this is just trauma, blah, 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 without the tools to like really navigate that, I wasn't a whole lot less mean. I was in some ways, but not in others. Anyway, fast forward to 2000, it was October of 23. I reached the pinnacle of a mental health crisis and really just wanted to die. And I had made the decision to die and then decided like probably not the nicest thing to do by your son's birthday and Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I set a date for
mhm,
very far off. And I was like, but
mhm,
if I'm gonna make it there, I gotta like do something. So I just kind of started shifting pieces, hearing different pieces of information, got into creativity, like just did what I could to survive. I did know I was gonna quit my job, which I did. I started my podcast. Um, it was truly my podcast that ultimately saved me because it was the guests that I was meeting. I still every day learn from the people that I'm in conversation with, but I kind of just learned like what was going on inside of me. I had a spiritual awakening during that time. And
Mm,
as I was uncovering my shame and seeing things differently and understanding the feminine versus the masculine, I got this very deep understanding that I had been fueled by spite my whole life. That is the single thing that got me through my childhood and early adulthood was spite because I was going to show everyone who
mm,
said I was going to be another statistic that that was not true. And I wanted to be the first. Like it was very enticing to be the first in my family to be a college graduate, a
mm,
therapist, like all the things. But then I had to realize, like, oh, I've been living in my masculine energy, fueled by spite my entire life. So it was at that point when I was starting to shift to living in my feminine because I made this decision where I was like, I've been called strong my whole life. You're so strong, doing great,
mm,
sweetie. And during my mental health crisis, it made me feel violent for that to be the answer because I was like, A, I don't feel strong. I feel very broken. I was in
mm,
profound darkness. And B, it really feels like I'm drowning and instead of throwing me a life raft, you're
mm.
just over there like, you can do it, baby. And I
Oh my
didn't
God, I feel
know.
that so much because it is
Yes.
some anger when you're like, oh, you're so resilient.
Yeah, I didn't want
Oh
anyone
yeah, I feel
using any
you.
one of those words about me ever again at that point. Now I've
Hmm.
made peace. But at that point I was
Right,
like,
right, right.
I was becoming belligerent even. I was like, I guess what? I don't care if I'm strong. It doesn't help me to not feel like I'm dying inside
Hmm.
every minute of every day. So how about some help? But like I didn't even know what help I needed, how to ask for it. I just was just alone. But I'm learning, all these things,
Hmm.
all these things. And so as I was starting to understand just the masculine and feminine, and I understood how I got there. As children, and I'm sure we talked about this when you were on the show, but as children, they take our voice from us
Mm.
because they
Hmm.
require compliance
Right.
and they require you to serve to your own demise and to make the comfort of others the priority. It is never what you need, what you desire, what you want. How can you use your intuition if you've never been given a chance? Like you've
Hmm.
never had permission to tune in to what your body and your soul are telling you to do.
Right.
How can you, everything you do requires practice. So here I am. I find myself at 44 years old because I'm about to turn 45. Like, really, the most transformations happened since July, August of last year.
Hmm.
So, like, I'm still learning and growing and evolving.
Oh, of
But
course.
I just was like, boys, and actually, I'll
Well,
tell you a
well, well,
story.
hold on.
Yeah.
Let's kind of go back 'cause I feel like you skipped such a huge part that I want to listen a little bit
Okay. Yeah.
more.
Yeah. What's up?
So, what you made the decision to leave this earth at a certain period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, you're like, okay, before that date comes, you decided to make that, started making shifts unconsciously just to get to that point? Or was it like,
Consciously, I didn't. Probably within 6 weeks of setting that date, I didn't want that date to come. But I also
mm,
didn't want to feel that way anymore. So, really, the gift for me was this little voice that was like, well, not right before your kid's birthday. You know what I mean? And
right?
so then, like, literally going through a calendar and being like, what's a good day to die, I guess, and
Mm,
that's what I did. But I mean, it wasn't not thinking about it even just for a week just took because I was this is the reason people get so happy once they make the decision because the someone is talking to you. I haven't talked very much about this, but when someone is talking to you and you're just laughing and whatever, I remember thinking they're going to be so sad whenever I'm gone
Wow.
because they're not going to see this. Like, I'm laughing in this moment. And every minute, every conversation with someone else or myself was deciding whether or not I was going to. And then I made the decision that I was going to. And the relief, I got about 24 hours of just relief. Like, I didn't even have to think about anything because it wasn't going to matter anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, but then I was like coming back to, I'm like, okay, so I set this date, but within a very short amount of time, I was doing enough to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to
And what
know that if I
got you
just do these things, I'm gonna be okay.
what got you to that point of, okay, I have a date and now like let me like what was it, like a voice in your head? It was it like that made you make those shifts, because that's the hard part, right?
Like the
Taking
things I did to get better.
yeah.
Um, you know what? I'm going to be just very honest
Yeah.
here. I had just in that year started using medical marijuana at night for
Mm,
sleep.
hmm.
And one day I took it for sleep, but I didn't like pass out like normal. And I was just kind of sitting there high. And it helped, honestly. If I'm being honest, it
Yeah.
helped me connect spiritually in a way that I hadn't had access to before.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I, I've never said this out loud, but I think I was really able to connect with my highest self in
Hmm.
those very quiet moments where I was wide open and I was ready to receive anything that was going to help me.
Yeah.
And I kind of think it was just like a moment where but then each night I'd have like these moments, or
Mm.
there were really, really, really bad days in that time to
Yeah.
where sometimes I would take an edible during the day. So honestly, I hate to say it like that, but it helped me because I was able to I
Yeah.
was in a very, very, very dark place, and
Hmm.
I was covered in noise that was very distracting and very agitating, and it was all very, very, very dark and negative. So just being able to chill a little bit and kind of euphoria, like
Hmm.
I was intentional with that time and did sit and just like hold myself for the first time. Once I decided I want to be held, I tried to learn how to do that for myself. And it wasn't happening great, but in those moments, like I could. And I was just taking like the tiniest little, like 5 milligrams, I think.
Right.
But it was just enough to kind of calm things down. And I would just choose that time to spend with myself and just like ask like what's next? What do I do? And I would
Mm.
be very intentional about the creativity. I learned I had access to creativity that I had never known in my life. So, like I wrote children's books. I used AI to animate them. I did the entire publishing process by myself. I would just spend hours just deep in flow state
Mhm.
doing creative projects. I think I made my journal at some point in that time. Like I did a lot of things
Wow.
just to try to occupy the time because I hadn't learned how to quiet the noise, and the noise was the
Hmm.
whole problem.
Yeah.
So flow state quiets the noise.
Hmm. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm glad you shared that part, because I feel there's a point in the darkest moments of our lives, there's something that, like, you kept on saying that word, there was an
Mm-hmm.
intention behind it, right? It's like somehow when you like set a date, I like, correct me if I'm wrong, like I felt like it was like a date for you to like come back to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. What's crazy is August now has such an important theme in my life, but I remember when I was freaking out like in May because I left that job and I was like, I was in education, so I knew I was gonna have a paycheck until August.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got my first therapy client in August, and like
Wow.
she's like the most amazing human being, and we've both just grown together. Like I'm that kind of therapist where I'm like getting as much from the shit as you
Oh
are,
yeah, I bet.
And so like like meeting her changed my life and changed hers. And, like
Mhm.
all these things, like now August. And what's funny is August is Leo season, and I've really come to embrace like my Leo moon. And I feel like my mom is on my spirit team and she was a Leo. So like
Yeah.
it means so much to me. And so it's funny to think in hindsight, like I was choosing that date to like not be on this earth anymore. But like in some ways, I'm not on this earth as that version of me anymore. Like there, that person, I don't recognize her at all.
Wow. That's so amazing. Like that you were in that such dark spot and look at where you at now.
Yeah. It's it's kind of wild because even the, like I said, like June last year was calm. Like I was out of the building that was causing so much of my issues.
Hmm.
But I was like, well, I have no job, so that's fun. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have this podcast, and I don't know what I'm doing, and it's causing me a lot of tech issues. And, like, I still didn't
Hmm.
have the skills to deal with any of that. And so, like, I was learning as I was going. But it's funny because by August, like, that's when everything really transformed. So,
That is so awesome. I'm so glad you shared that. And if you haven't shared that, I recommend you do because I feel like that's such a pivotal moment in everybody's life that everyone has a different, everybody has different ways that they go through that are like, wow, like that dark moment, like led me here. And sometimes I think about it, I'm like, how did that happen? Like for me, it was like a lot of like my whole world like stopped for a moment where like money stopped. Like
mhm.
I the choices that I thought like were like my destiny or like I was making everything crumbled to the point
Yeah.
where I like you mentioned, there was so much noise out
Hmm.
there because and there is, and I feel like even
Yeah.
though like we're like, well, I'll be honest, I was taking marijuana, but I mean, I feel that helped you just in a way. I'm not
It
recommending
did. It
everybody to
still
do it. Like,
does. It's right. And that's why I've hesitated to talk
yeah,
about it
and of
because
course,
I don't
like,
want people to think I'm encouraging that. But
yeah, I
for
mean,
me, that it worked and it was good for me. And it
yeah,
still is. I still utilize it and I still feel so fucking good and spiritual and close to myself and everyone when I do.
and again, and I feel like it's the intention.
Yeah,
It all comes down to the
exactly.
intention, and also
Because I'm
like
not trying
people,
to escape. It's not.
yeah,
In fact, I deal with shit more whenever I'm taking the edibles. But like, it was never about numbing. But like, if you don't know what it's like to live in a very, very, very hyper aroused place from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, and at that time, I was still there. Like, I
mm-hmm,
hadn't figured out how to get myself to baseline. Like,
mm-hmm,
that was the only way to just, slow
mm-hmm.
down that nervous system a little bit because I had been in fight or flight from the time I was born, very
Yeah,
literally.
yeah. I know, and I love that. So when you started kind of in a way without you realizing, coming to back to yourself, like
Mhm.
what was the biggest shift for you that you noticed physically or just like around you that had it like that changed for you?
I was just so much more attuned to me. Like, for instance, I kind of had to stop. I have to be so careful about media that I consume, not
Mm,
just because I don't want it programming my subconscious, but also I noticed how much things hurt me. Like I can feel every sensation in my body now because I'm very connected to self. And
hmm.
so, like, when it's hard for me to even watch things that aren't bad or
Because
negative.
you're not numb anymore.
Yes, exactly. And so I feel everything. I'm like, oh, I don't like the way, like animal stuff. I can't handle it. Like, please,
Hmm.
people, stop posting things on the internet about that are bad about animal. Like, it hurts me to my core.
Right.
People showing hunting pictures. I I'm actually just now in this phase of my journey where I don't get pissed at other people and I understand it's my responsibility to create the safety.
Right.
But for a minute, and I mean a long one, I was really pissed at people because I'm like, oh, because I mean everything, it's my stomach. Like it was hurt in my chest so bad to just experience somebody else's pain. So I have to be really careful about that. But on the flip side of that, I noticed too the first time. that we went like hiking together, my family, after, coming home. I started to cry because I could enjoy the grass that was, it was really tall grass we were walking through, and it was rubbing on my arm and also just making a sound as we passed through, because we were on a path that was just like, but the
Mm-hmm.
grass was all grown up around us, and the birds chirping really loudly, and it was sprinkling. All sensations I would not have been able to handle before. Like, I would have been so agitated every minute of that hike because I could not handle stimulation, because I was overstimulated at
Right.
all times. So I like started to cry and just like express gratitude, because I was like, I could enjoy nature. Like, that's been the biggest thing, is I can feel so much more, but like physically. And that it's a struggle sometimes. I have to be really careful and kind of put
Mm-hmm.
up that force field a little bit.
Yeah, I love that you share that because yeah, that's something that I actually started noticing for myself too. It's just like you're more like I feel like what I the stuff that I went through, I have more empathy for people now too. Where
Hmm.
like honestly before I wouldn't. Is
Right. Well, and I think it's just compassion, because
yeah.
once you learn to love yourself, when
Mm-hmm.
you love yourself, you get really good at compassion, grace, understanding, and forgiveness for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn that's all love is those things that you
Yeah.
cultivate within and that you're sharing with others. So, like, it's so easy to look at someone else now and be like, oh,
Like
that hurt.
oh, like I feel you. You're
Yes, like,
struggling.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
we know, because we're getting really good at identifying all of these things in ourselves. That's been the most beautiful thing, is like the more work I do on me and I go, oh, I do that too. It makes it so much easier to forgive others. Like, and just
Mm-hmm.
be like, I
Oh
forgive you.
yeah.
Like, oh, word. Thank you for making that mistake, because it actually makes me feel so much better that I do too. Like, like, it's
Yeah.
relationships are so different now, and just the way I view everything. But yeah, I think it's compassion, because, like, empathy really isn't like our greatest suit, because if you think about what empathy really is, like putting yourself in someone's shoes,
Mm-hmm.
that's not great for you, because your brain is like, oh, it's happening to me, whenever you're imagining
Mm-hmm.
what it would be like if it was happening to
Right.
you. But I believe that this work that we do within ourselves and sharing this light with others, it just is a continual building and growing of that compassion and love.
Right. Yeah. No, totally true. So, as you're evolving, like, in everything, how do you handle like when things kind of shake up for you, right? Because we do get to a point where it's like there is some relief. There is when you
Yeah.
kind of connect with yourself, you start choosing yourself, you start trusting yourself, right? And
Hmm.
like you mentioned, you stop listening to the outside noise. But those moments, because there is moments, life happens and life can be hard, right?
Hmm.
What, how do you handle that now compared to before?
I get a lot more intentional. Like, I can still, I'm never zoned out all the time like I was.
Mhm.
I'm pretty present. But if something in my life is stressing me out, I have to get very small and very laser focused and make sure the main thing's the main thing. And the main thing is I maintain peace and harmony despite what's happening outside of me. And so a really good example of this is my now 18-year-old, at the time was 17, got himself in some legal trouble in November.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah,
was
that I'm sure
great.
that rocked your world, like
It
your whole
I was
center,
doing
right? Like,
great until, I'm so serious, Denise. Everything in my life was like, ah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I wasn't like making the money I wanted to or whatever, but it was like, this is
Mm,
for real, the life I dreamed. Like, I am in love, and
yeah.
then boom, this shit happens. Like, to the point where, like, he was actually incarcerated, like in a little juvie, and
Hmm.
spent Thanksgiving there because I didn't bail him out. But
Yeah. Hmm.
like, there was this whole thing, and it was really big. This is my
Oh,
baby.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, I
I was
can
like,
just imagine, and you made the
oh,
decision to not take him out. I could just only imagine.
it was all of it. All of it, just the fear, the
Right.
shame, the everything. And I made a decision right then. I was like, I'm not leaning into my own fear or my shame. This does not have shit to do with me.
Mm,
I'm sure anybody and I could, we could all sit here and list 1,000 things I could have done differently that might have produced a different outcome, but it doesn't matter because this is what we're dealing with. And I
Mhm.
was like, what do I do? And I did grow so much through this because I had to. So at first, like I was like, okay, chemical depletion. So I could feel that. I know what that feels like in my body. I need to
Mhm.
sleep. The first 3 days were very numb and just bracing. And then after we had our first court date and I had to leave him there, I cried the entire way home, took a nap, woke up, and I was like, okay, I'm better. Like, I guess I just needed to cry. I
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
like, okay, I'm back on steady ground. And my husband was like, oh my God, I was so scared. I thought you weren't going to remember how to be happy again because, like, you just got happy. It was so
Oh,
sad. It was so sad.
yeah.
Yeah, he was like, he was so terrified because he's like having to feed me soup in bed because I'm like, I can't get up right now. But I knew that's what I needed. I wasn't
Mhm.
trying to avoid anything. I wasn't, my body took that weight and it was
Mhm.
very tired. And so I listened to it and I slept more. And, I let people know. And let me tell you, Denise, my children are the things I've kept the most private in my entire life. Not for their sake. This thing I really have kept private for his privacy.
Mhm.
But like there were so many things my friends never knew about and whatever because I didn't want the judgment. You know
Right,
what I
right,
mean?
right, right.
So like to start to share with others and say, listen, I'm going like I had to reschedule 2 podcast recordings the first court date and I just said, yo, my kid got some legal trouble, blah blah blah. And then that ended up being like the most beautiful conversations like after like
Mhm.
making friends like mine did it too, it's okay, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got to like develop a network and stuff just from saying this is what I'm going through and this is what I need. That was the first time in my life I'd ever like been really honest with people and
Mhm.
also asked for help. Even though it was just saying this is what I need, that wasn't something I used to do. It was you do what you
Yeah.
got to do. And at this time I was like, no. So getting very intentional. And that's actually when I built the or created a little building emotional hygiene like workbook. Right after that is whenever I created surviving the shit show workbook, like what to do,
Mhm.
to build up your inner world when the world around you is falling apart. Like it really inspired me because I was like, how do you get through this? Like how do you
Yeah.
without losing your mind? Because
Yeah.
I've watched my brothers go through this, like
Mhm.
themselves as a teenager, like the end path hasn't ended well for anyone like recently that I've watched walk through this a certain way.
Mhm.
And in other people's, I saw that it ended fine, but I didn't want to be the person that I saw some people being in those
Mhm.
moments. And I said to him the first time I visited him where he was, I was like, you better be glad I had a fucking spiritual awakening before this. That's all I'm gonna say. Cause like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna punish you like this.
Right.
He spent 3 weeks in there. He missed Thanksgiving. Like, like what am I gonna do? Like, really, the goal is to get him where he needs to go. So, like,
Mhm.
what supports do I need to offer you is really much more productive than how can I punish you and make you feel like a giant piece of
Yeah.
shit,
And just
you know?
allowing him to make the decision of receiving that help.
Exactly. Yeah. And just know that like my responsibility to him really does only go so far.
Mhm.
And so, this is one of the things that took our intuition as children is the fact that our caregivers viewed us as direct extensions and reflections of them, and
Them.
that was the center of their world and ours, was us making them look good to the outside world to prove, mostly mothers,
Mhm.
that what they did was worthy because they
Right.
had no identity outside of us.
Mhm.
That's not their fault, but it
Right.
is what it is. And so, yeah, I just didn't want to like perpetuate all that anymore. And it was like, this isn't about me. This isn't about me. So I just got really small
Wow.
and really
And that
intense.
was, I mean, oh my gosh, I can imagine that, how strong. Honestly, you had to be really strong to do that.
It was
But
one
you know
moment at a
what?
time.
Well, you know what? Yes, you were strong, but as you were talking, I was like, wow, her foundation was strong. I feel that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I realized that I was missing for myself, even throughout my whole healing journey, is that my foundation was shaky as anything would come up, any It could be the smallest
Yes.
little thing. It was just like, oh, life sucks. You
I
know,
remember those months for me. Yes.
so
Yes.
like hearing you in that specific scenario and as hearing this as a mother, I was like, oh my God,
It was
and
awful. I mean, I'm not going to say it wasn't. And
oh no, no, no. Oh,
I
I
was
could
white
just
knuckling some moments of those. I'm not going to.
oh no, and
There were some
and
days I was so bitchy and agitated, and I just had to say, like, I don't have anything to give today, you know?
and that's what I love what you just mentioned right now, like even that, because and that's the messy middle, right? Because
Yes.
like if we would have said, "Oh my God, you had such a strong," in which you do, and that's something I wanted to point out, is where it's so easy to just crumble and not get back up,
Right.
right? And even on those days where you're like, I can't get out of bed, like I'm
Right.
pissed, like even allowing yourself to feel those emotions,
Yeah. And I
it's
think that that really helped me to
mm-hmm,
do that. Because, like, actually, from the time that happened until just after New Year, I took most of my recordings and client like therapy
mm-hmm,
stuff in my bed. I just didn't exert energy that I didn't have, and I really didn't have it. You know, like
mm-hmm.
I could tell that's what it was doing, was it was making me tired because I was processing a lot all the time. And I
Yeah,
was very overwhelmed because once he was released, there was all these appointments and probation and off, court and da, da,
mm-hmm,
da, 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 and all the things. And so I was really overwhelmed, which is a real big trigger for me because I think it just triggers that, like, you're not enough, so like if I have too
mm-hmm.
much to do, but I'm learning to be a better container for that too. But yeah, it was really just like I had at that point built a very, very good toolbox for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I knew how to recognize shame narratives when they were popping up so that I could be like, no. I knew that I needed to listen to what my body was telling me. And if it was saying rest, it was that I needed to rest. And I did need a lot of rest. It was a very isolating period because it's not like I was okay with sharing it with everybody. You know what I mean? So like I
Yeah.
wasn't, and I didn't, because I was so overwhelmed by all of it, I didn't want to talk about things until I knew what the resolution was going to be because it was just too much.
It's too
And
much.
if I talk about things before I'm ready to, it just triggers me and gets me all escalated.
Oh,
And you know
mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah. So I just was kind of like isolated, but I was like, what can I, what today? How can I focus on this? And then as I would look at like maybe 2 weeks worth of time and be like, I don't like the way that felt. What could I do this next 2 weeks? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to my husband, like, we got to go play pickleball, or we got to, like I need child stuff. I need to play. I need
Mm-hmm.
play. And so he was good about, okay, let's go play or a nature walk. We went and put our feet in natural water. And my God, like
Oh,
it
yeah.
makes me so happy. So like I just, on the weekends specifically, I really tried to make sure like
Mm-hmm.
that I did something that lit me up like a child and just gave me that joy and peace. And that's what I mean, intention. Like I have a whole
Yeah.
list of things
This
that
whole
I go to.
conversation, I
Yeah.
felt your biggest thing was intention.
Yeah.
Because in those moments, it's so easy. I know for me, just to kind of go to my old patterns and just like stay in
Yes.
bed, watch TV, just kind of numb. And sometimes I feel that is needed, right? And
Yes,
allowing
absolutely. There's
yourself
a
to do,
space for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
allowing yourself to do that. But just like you mentioned, it's like, all right, let's look back at how these last 2 weeks went by. Do I like it? What
Hmm.
And it's so interesting because I do the same thing. I was like, I feel off. Like I'll allow myself to do that, but I know I overly do it, especially TV is like my weak zone.
See,
Like,
TikTok for me, baby.
oh,
TikTok for me is
TikTok, TikTok is starting to be, but like, TV is like that's why I avoid seasons because I have no self-control, but that's a whole different
I feel you. I feel you.
conversation. So like sometimes I'm like, okay, I force myself, and I know it's horrible to say that, but sometimes you have to. And I'm so happy that
No,
I even
sometimes you really do.
I
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, I have to go for a long walk, even though I was like, I really do not want to do it. Or it's like, you
Yeah.
know what, I need to do that meditation, and it got to the point where I just knew it made me feel good. So sometimes it's like you're,
Yeah, and as long as it's not like shit talking yourself to
yeah,
do it, you're
exactly.
not shaming yourself into it, then absolutely your higher self's just guiding you,
Mm-hmm.
that's your intuition
Yeah.
saying, you know what you need, but we gotta do it.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that. Because I mean, I could just imagine that time how hard it was for you, just dealing with all of that and just how regulating your own emotions to it, that things that like probably in the past you thought you dealt with, but it's kind of surfacing a little bit back to you, But
Oh
like,
my God, yes. Especially because the truth is, I have lived in fear that this child would be like one of my brothers his entire life. And it
mm,
actually was during his like being locked up that I said something like that to my older son, and he goes, maybe you manifested this. And I was like, you know what? I think there's some truth in that. And I'm going to start speaking more positively and making more positive assumptions. Like, I'm
mhm,
just going to assume that this was just a mistake and you were stupid and you did a really stupid. And that's what I said to him. Like, his first phone call to me, I was like, yo, you did a real human thing here. That was
mhm.
that. And that's all I have to say about it. Are you okay? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, and also just kind of separating yourself and be like, you know what, this is his journey, and this is
Exactly.
and this is something he had. Because I'm a true believer, even in the shittiest moments, I'm like, oh, I know there's a lesson here. I like there's something, at
Mm-hmm.
that moment, I don't even want to hear about it. I'm talking to myself here. I'm like, I know. I feel
Yeah.
like there's a lesson for him in there too.
Oh, absolutely. He's a Leo rising. He's got great things ahead of him, but this is part of it. And
Yeah.
this child has always been a person who has to learn things the hard way 30
Mm.
times before he gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I didn't even like realize this until then, but he has Saturn in his first house too. But I told him at the time, like, you have a gift of getting caught. So I need you. And I had told him that before too. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like this is the first brush with trouble, but this was
Mm-hmm.
the first brush with the law.
Right.
And so I was like, you have the gift of getting caught. And it is a gift, son. It is, because when you get away with everything that you do, you're developing a character that isn't you, son. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
not you. He is a good person and he has a very soft and sweet spirit, but he's figuring stuff out in his own way right now. And like, I'm not going to support bad behavior, but
Right.
like right now he's just an 18-year-old who just graduated from school, and that was the other thing. So and actually, I'm going to be very transparent with you. His dad nor any of his dad's family know about this at all,
Mm.
because, well, I have my reasons, because
Yeah.
they're not that involved, so why would I worry them?
Mm-hmm.
But like, the school had said he wasn't going to be allowed to attend graduation
Mm.
because he was an adjudicated minor. And that has been weighing on me until he just got to go to graduation a couple weeks ago. And I was just
I saw
like,
the pictures. Yeah.
yeah. So every time it, like, I was like, this is my fucking graduation. But every
Mm-hmm.
time it would like come in, I would be like, what can we do about it? Not shit. So what do I need right now to feel better? And then I just kept making positive assumptions. And finally, I told his probation officer about it, and she got his case dismissed a week early so that he could go to graduation. But
Oh, that's amazing.
I was like, it's gonna be fine. Like, things are gonna work out. And so that's the way I'm looking at things for him. And it's funny that you talk about the messy middle, because that's been my biggest lesson, is getting over the fact that life is messy, and that
Mm-hmm.
like I can
Yes.
be messy and still be great,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
I'm
that's big.
really
My
learning to
biggest
lean
thing
into
too.
that. It's
Mm-hmm.
But those perfectionist standards, they'll chip away at you and chip away at you, and I allowed them to for so long. And
Yeah.
still, when I have an issue and I dig down, I'm like, damn it, that was perfectionism again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm embracing messy, because messy is magical, and that's where all of my magic is.
Mm-hmm.
But I always talk about, like, with clients, or even just in these conversations, like, viewing two clips, where you are and where you're trying to get to in any scenario,
Right, right, right.
and how you don't get to control, like, this part. The outcome's going to be the outcome. It's not going to, the end result doesn't change that much
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
But what can be vastly different is the middle ground, how you're going to handle it. Like, how much of your piece do you want to give away for free over something that the end result is going to be there
No
no
matter
matter.
what.
So,
Yeah.
like, I'm working so hard on not sweating the small stuff, which I know is it, we're all tired of hearing that phrase, but it does mean so much because I'm learning every little thing isn't a fucking catastrophe. You
Hmm.
remember those early days of like learning how to edit or,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I'd be crying so hard. I mean, literally, I make a joke about this, but it's very true. Like, I was sitting there just like, this was
Like,
probably the
Brad,
beginning of
this is
last year.
horrible. Yeah.
Every little bit of this sucks. I knew I wasn't going to quit. So, like, I'm
Right.
just crying my ass off for no reason. But, that's how I dealt with everything. And so, I just sat there and I was like, I was in this very chair. I was like, I get it. 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 I give up. You're saying until I quit reacting this way over every little thing, you're going to continue to give me every little thing. I
Oh my
fucking
gosh.
surrender. And I was just like, that's it. I guess what? I'm talking to nobody and everybody all at the same time. I'm like, guess what?
I
I don't even
have,
care about
oh
this
my
tech
gosh.
issue. Guess what? I don't
And
care. How about that? And then I just really learned how to do that.
yes,
And then I was like, oh, look, it feels so much better to not be all worked up in a tizzy
yes.
over something that literally doesn't matter.
And it's so funny you said that because I have those moments. Or it was like, I give up. Like, and I'm literally looking up. Literally, your
Yeah,
hand how they're up. That's literally like, all right, okay.
surrender.
You want me to do this? You want me to not carry stress? All right, fine. Figure it out
Yes,
then. I'm just going to stop.
yes, yes. Because I was just like, I really sat there because I was thinking so much. I must have been having a lot of these conversations at the time, but about how, like, I mean, I'm pretty open about the fact that like I'm not a Christian anymore, but I was raised very fundamentalist. And a lot of the stuff transfers to spirituality.
Yeah.
But as a child, I prayed for wisdom every night, every night,
Wow.
every night. Why would I do that to myself? But because I wanted torture apparently. But like you learn, you don't ask God source, whatever you want to call it, for patience or wisdom unless you want to experience the depths of hell to get it. Because
Whew,
nobody just
yes.
grants you patience or
Hmm.
wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Ugh, I was an old soul. What are you going to do? So I was kind of having those conversations and thinking about it. And I was like, okay, I do know that is why I'm getting all of these little tiny inconveniences because I make them into a mountain every time. And I knew that. But I also, at that point, I guess I still felt like it wasn't within my control. And in that moment, I made a decision that it was. It was in my control. And so I was like, fine, I don't care. And I kind of like, just knock something over, like, whatever. Knock my microphone, whatever. Like, it's fine. I
Right.
don't care. I'm having a little tantrum. I don't care. And then I was like, you know what, though? Like, I really don't. None of this matters. Like, and actually, God, I haven't even thought about this, but that's the shit that helped me grow into my authenticity because I put
Mhm.
those episodes out anyway. So many mistakes, so many errors, so many tech issues, and I haven't changed a single one of them. And it helped me get to a place where I am proud to be a no frills podcast. Half the time, I don't even touch the episodes anymore because I'm busy and I release
Right.
3 a week. So I'm like, oh, even like a couple weeks ago I actually like didn't cut something that I was afraid to air. I'm just getting to where I'm like I don't care. But like
Hmm.
it's been a process because I've been a people pleasing good girl my entire life,
Oh,
you
yeah, I
know?
feel you there.
So like those little things that made me lose my mind and cry my ass off for hours, those are the things that like they help shape who I am right now and who
Hmm.
I'm going to be. Because man, I'm just like I didn't know I could get more authentic, but every day like there's just more and more of me that I'm willing to share and be
Hmm.
like, I am afraid, but I'm not afraid of, I'm only afraid in that moment. I'm not like, oh God, I'm not sitting around
Right.
stressing afterwards or whatever. It's just in that moment. But again, I'm learning to be a container for all this and learning how to recognize when something scares the shit out of me because that's something I used to like tune out. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, I feel it, I feel it, I feel it. Even sometimes this happens when I see that I'm getting an email. Like things are still very just tricky in my nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm noticing that like, oh, I'm avoiding my email or I'm avoiding checking my bank account or I'm avoiding
Yeah,
checking the mail or answering the phone or whatever. So I'm just learning every day to just lean into like whatever all this is,
yeah.
and be a container for it.
Yeah, and just being okay. And I love that you said that the perfectionism, like same here. I thought like I healed all this. Why am I still dealing with this? Why am I still not perfect? And
Yep.
one of the biggest things for me is realizing that I was comparing my worth toward the thing, the like for me was always money.
Me too.
So if like money was coming in, oh, I feel worthy. And then when I personally hit this roadblock this year of like money just stopping, it was like this realization, like, oh my God. And like, it's weird because I got to this realization that's what was like your foundation so strong. And that was my learning experience with it. I was like, wow, my foundation has gone so strong that I feel so good, even though shit is slow right now for me.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me. And I was like, oh my God, this was my lesson. Like, even though that was like the hardest and scariest part, I was like, I needed to go through that to get to this
Yeah.
point.
Well, and I have had so many financial stresses this year, the year like since I quit my job and stuff. It's been a beautiful practice in surrender for me
Mm-hmm.
because like I'm doing the things that I can do aside from, I'm going to be really honest, no, I'm not going and chasing the easy money. Like, what I mean by that is like I'm not I could go do Uber Eats if I wanted
Mm-hmm.
the money that bad. I could do things. I
Right.
have access to those, but I made a decision that I wasn't going to tire myself out and not have any room for things to come in or for ideas to spark
Mm.
or, like the life I'm trying to build or the life that I dreamed of, the life I'm in love with doesn't include me having to work till 10 p.m. to make a dollar. So like hell
Mm-hmm.
no. I the worthiness stuff, I started to ask myself this around like sometime within this last year because I'm not making near as much money as I used to. And it is still, like this month I celebrated very loudly because it was the first month in a long time I've paid my car payment on time. And because like I'm still kind of living in a life that was supported by an income that I no longer have.
Mm.
And I really asked myself, am I tying my worth to my income? And
Mm-hmm.
absolutely I was. And I don't know that like I'm all the way over that. In fact, I met this really cool lady on here who she does like subliminals and other things to help you like work through blocks.
Right.
And she's like, what block do you have? And I was like, I think worthiness. I think I'm still subconsciously struggling with that because there are times like when when you're manifesting something and you like kind of say your wildest dreams and you try to say it in present and da da
Right.
da, but you don't really believe it. There
Mm-hmm.
are times when I'm talking about the infinite worth and value that we have just for being that I can hear over here and kind of feel the hesitance and resonance and
Mm-hmm.
maybe just like not as much belief. And
Right.
so I was like, it's there. And so I want to work on this because I'm ready to remove all blocks from money. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Come in. But it's also like that's the messy middle too, that
Yeah.
I have always been very transparent about the fact that like, baby, let me just be really clear, and I'm not gonna mention any names in this, but if someone still has a full-time job and they are doing all of this in content creation and blah blah blah, they're lying to you about what the content creation and everything else is bringing to them.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, and I don't give a shit what
Yep.
job it is, nobody would keep that full-time job if this thing was bringing them the income they're
Right.
telling you that it's bringing them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. I've started to understand the marketing gimmicks and da da da.
Right.
Da. I get it. I do. But at the same time, someone has to be the voice of the middle ground when you haven't made it to where yeah, I've had some success. I'm not saying I
Yeah,
haven't.
yeah, of
But
course.
like but I'm nowhere near where I want to be. And I'm not going to pretend that I am. And it's a balance because I don't want to speak negative into the universe and make it sound like things are rough or they're never going to be better or whatever. But like, it's stressful when you don't know how you're going to pay your car payment. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And especially when I have so much PTSD related to very like poor times in my life,
Hmm.
both like with caregivers as an adult with my ex-husband, like those things, my safety and security very much relied on money. And I felt really comfortable, but I still wanted to die. So, like here I am
Right, right.
here.
It's
And I'm
just,
like, I don't want to die. So that's something. That's something.
I mean,
And
I feel
hold
like we're
on.
all working towards something, and it's so interesting you mentioned that because it's so true. Like even I love that you said like I want to show where I'm at, and I feel like this is someone had pointed this out to me, and I kind of felt it. I just didn't really know how to articulate it until she kind of mentioned it, and I was like, that is so interesting. How like I feel like the new kind of like paradigm is like where people are now. Before it was like this hierarchy, people won't trust someone unless they're like up here and they show up this way.
Yep.
And I feel now people are just kind of catching up to that, like that it's not real.
Yeah.
That I feel like now, and again, I think this is where like, okay, this is where the pod, my personally my own messaging and like what I want to get out there is like, you know what, we're all here, right? We all have something to share, like we all growing together.
Yes.
And I feel like that's such a huge thing. And I love that you're doing that for yourself and showing people the rawness because it gives people like, oh my God, like it's okay to put something out there and it's not working yet. It doesn't mean stop, right? Because and then you start this whole comparison, right? And again, it
Right.
goes outside, again, outside voices. And it,
Yeah, and not to say that we don't still do some of that. I mean, like it happens. I
yeah,
have days where I see somebody else like succeed really big in it, and I don't like the way I feel about it, because
hmm
I'm like, I love that for you, but why isn't this fucking happening
hmm
for me yet?
yep,
You know? But it really does make me double down on my commitment to be supportive of others because like we're all going to get there a lot easier if we're nice and kind and
hmm
like uplifting to others. And listen, if it's not your thing to share other people's stuff or whatever, that's
yeah.
fine. But I'm really committed to that because I mean, we're all just doing our best.
No, yeah, 100%. And I feel like is that realization, like not everybody has it together. And I think that was one of my biggest realizations. Like I always felt someone else was ahead of me or like, how do they make it look so
Yeah.
easy? And it's
Hmm.
like, no, shit's hard.
It
You
is
know?
hard. It is. That's why I love to talk to entrepreneurs because the spiritual evolution that you have to take to be an
Oh my
entrepreneur,
God. I don't
you
think I
have
would have
to.
got to this point if I didn't take this road
Right.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, because you have to overcome so much of yourself.
You have to have faith. Like, and
Yes.
I'm not talking about religion, like it
Oh,
could be
I get it.
religion, but
A
I got to
fundamental
get to the
belief,
point
man.
of having faith that everything was going to work out. And in a way, going back to having faith in myself and trusting myself. And I think that was my biggest shift for me.
Yeah. Well, and I keep hearing little nuggets at the right time. Like someone
Mm-hmm.
said, if the reason you feel this pull so strongly is because there's a version of you that has it already. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I took it in and I made that home. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yes,
Oh, yeah. When
I
I
will
hear
do that.
something, I was like,
Yes.
that's what I'm feeling. Because sometimes I don't know how to
Uh-huh.
articulate it. Right?
Yes,
Like, and then
exactly.
someone else says it. I was like, yes, I knew there was something. So,
Yes.
and it's so powerful, and I love that. So, you know, let me ask you this: like, someone who is in a moment, maybe like in maybe their darkest time right now, and they don't know what their next step is, or like maybe they're like, because I always say, like, sometimes we make decisions in our life, and it doesn't have to be something so dark, right? It could be like, some,
Yeah,
because I feel like everybody has their own version of darkness, right? Or like,
sure.
where they're like, there's something pulling me in this direction, but it doesn't make
Hmm.
sense. Like, there makes
Hmm.
no sense for me to make that drastic move or whatever the case is. Well, what would be your best advice? Like, if you were like, someone would, I'm like, I wish someone would have told me this when I
Ooh,
was,
that's a good question.
yeah.
First, I would say that it really took some depth to understand because one of my big blocks in life was feeling like every decision was the most important decision. And I mean, even like where you're going to choose to eat
Mm-hmm.
really lent itself to all that catastrophic thinking. So every decision was like two very distinct paths. One's the right one, one's the wrong one. One leads to
Mm-hmm.
success, one leads to hell. Okay.
Right.
Every decision in my life was like that. So I would
Same
say
here.
check in, make sure you're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then understand that we're not all of the people that you hear saying if it's meant for you it can't miss you, we're nobody's saying that as a cliche, and if you haven't learned to internalize the meaning of that yet, that's okay. But understand that unless you're trying to decide whether or not to rob a bank, there's really not an outcome that's not going to serve your highest good.
Mm.
Like you can make mistakes and that's just fine. Like maybe I'm not going to promise you that the decision you really feel like you should make is going to lead to the outcome you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking it will, but I will guarantee you it will be an outcome that leads to your, that's connected to your highest self, that the outcome will be for your highest good. When you can learn to understand and just internalize the fact that nothing's happening to you, it's all happening for you, because we live in this punishment reward kind of place. For me, I
Mm-hmm.
think it was really religious programming that got me
Yeah.
there. But no one's
Mm-hmm.
out to get you, babe. No one, no one, no one, no one. You are fundamentally supported by whatever it is you believe in for your higher power. You got everything you need. It's all inside of you. Like
Mm-hmm.
we keep asking everyone else's opinion,
Yes.
advice. You got it. It's all here. You have every answer that you've ever needed in your life. And so what if it goes wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always a build back. And even when it goes right, let's say it goes exactly how you thought it was going to go, it's still not going to look or feel the way you thought it would. So it's life is just about expectations and understanding that the expectation just has to be I'm going to do my best. I'm going to accept failure as part of all of this. Just like, you know, this phrase is repeating, so I'm going to say it, but like how relapse is a part of recovery,
Mm-hmm.
like all of this is intentional. It really is. It's meant to shape you into the person that you are, how you can come back home to who you were before you forgot. And that's been the most beautiful lesson for me was I was fine before. Like if I just wasn't shaming myself to death, because
Mm-hmm.
that girl who wanted to die because she wasn't perfect, and that's literally it.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally it. I had convinced myself my children were better off without me because I didn't know how to be a perfect parent. Because when I made this covenant with myself that I would not give them the life that I was given, apparently that meant I was going to do everything perfectly and I was never going to make a mistake. I get a deepening understanding of how okay it is to be messy a lot. Apparently, I need a lot of work in this area. Every time I look back and I go, "Ooh, I was really upset with myself. Why? Because it was messy." And I have to forgive myself all of the time. But you're fine exactly how you are. Like someone told me life wasn't meant for healing. The healing happens so you can get everything that you want out of life. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can quit sabotaging yourself and pushing everyone away and every ounce of success away and love away because you hate yourself. Like that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the point of what we're doing here. Like if I don't know, you're just getting on TikTok, but this there's a trend that's like I almost forgot this is the whole point, and I kind of like watching those when they come up
Mm-hmm.
because they're living in this very mundane moment, and it's like, yeah, but this is what I was fighting so hard for, you know?
Right. Oh my gosh, that is honestly that when you say we're in the same wavelength, like, oh my God, I felt that so much because you're like, yes, you're, and yeah, I grew up Catholic, so I see like the right and wrong. you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very
Yeah.
staunch.
And then like society too, right? It's just like there's a right wrong.
Polarizing. We are in a very polarized society right now.
Yeah, and I feel like that was what froze me from listening to myself. That was the
Absolutely.
biggest thing for me. And I would look
Absolutely.
for outside advice, family, friends. I invested in myself in coaches and all of this stuff for someone to tell me what's the right path for me.
Yeah.
And yes, there was some good and bad advice along the way.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, once I realized how much I needed to go within and like I had all the answers and that was the biggest thing for me is like it's okay if the decision didn't lead me where it's supposed to. Maybe that was a decision. I had to learn something from there. Um,
Absolutely.
I was hearing this podcast where, and it was like you said, you always hear things at the right time. And that was it for me because I was at that point when I realized, okay, I need to start trusting myself in, on any direction. I don't care. Like, I don't want to ask for any more advice. I don't want to have any more coaching. Like, I want to make my own damn decisions. And it sounds so
Yes.
funny, but I'm like, I am going to be 40 this year. And I'm like, and I still can't make my own damn decisions, right? So I was
Yes.
like at a point where I was angry now.
Yes.
And I listened to this lady, and she's an agent. I don't know her name, but you've probably seen her because we probably follow like the same types
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
content. But she was just mentioning how they train agents, and just to make fast decisions. They're like, well, you have to just make a decision and take it from there wherever it goes. If it's wrong, all right, just make another decision. Like she just made it so simple, and I'm like, all
Yes.
right, like that's it. They're like, yeah, just keep on moving. That's the only way an agent's gonna stay safe. And it's like if you stop and like contemplate and overthink your decision, she goes, that agent is dead. I'm like,
No, that's so true. But even think about like, God, that made me think about running when I was a runner. Like,
mm-hmm,
especially when you're doing long distance, if you stop, your legs lock up, bro, and then
mm-hmm.
you're dead. You're just like, you can't get anywhere. But if you keep running, the momentum will take you somewhere.
Yeah, and
No, that's so true. I
I
love
was like,
that.
oh wow. I was like, that would just kind of hit me. I was like, oh, just make a decision and just
I know, but it did not feel that simple before.
oh, not at all.
I
It felt like
know.
it was life or
Decisions were
death.
so hard for me.
Yeah, it was like life or death. And I was like, oh my God. Like, so it's so interesting. Like, I love that you gave that advice because I was like, for me, if I would have heard that, you would have been my agent moment.
No, I get it. Because that's the thing is like I would ask everyone their opinion and stuff, but
Hmm.
never be satisfied. And like I remember asking someone for their opinion on my website and they shit on it and I was like, "Yeah, but I don't really like your website, so I don't
Well,
know
I
why I
really like,
asked you."
yeah, and it's so fun. I
You
used to do
know?
that too. We're like, oh, what do you think? And I loved it. And they're like, well, if
Yes.
you do this and this and that, so you kind of like, oh, maybe it does suck. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and then now I'm just like,
Absolutely.
yeah, you should. If
I
you
kind
love
of
it,
don't
you love
ask
it.
people shit anymore. Yeah, because that's been one of my big lessons is just like learning to just like well, but that just leads me to the point of like being solid on your yeses and your nos. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like how does it feel to say yes to this thing? How
Mm-hmm.
does it feel to say no to this thing? So, like, if I really fucking like my website, I really like it. And I don't need other people to say it's good or bad. Like,
Right.
I don't care now if you like my website. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing about other people liking your website is that, like, I have offers on there I'd like people to take me up on.
Right.
So
Right.
like am I presenting the information? But like I love my color scheme and stuff, girl. Like I like it. I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Right now it's staying the way it is because I have worked far too much on it. And then I said, you know what, we're gonna take a break on this website. We're gonna take a break.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need other people to cut like now, like if Nori came in and she was like, baby, let me give you some advice on your website. I trust her. So I'd be like, okay,
Right.
I'll take your advice, but like literally, I asked somebody that I literally did not like their website. I didn't like anything about their website. So why would I ask them?
Right.
Because some small little baby in me wanted somebody else's validation and approval. Well, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give that to myself. And I find myself in situations like that a lot where I'm like, somebody didn't meet my expectations. I know what that is. Okay, we're good. Like I know what I did to cause that. Like I
Right.
had an expectation that wasn't fair. Great. Okay. And then now what? Like, what am I needing? Oh, I was wanting some validation or assurance or whatever. And I'm like, how can I give that to myself right now? Because I have sourced that out my
Mm-hmm.
entire life. I didn't know how to give myself anything, which is why I thought I wasn't enough because I didn't know how to meet my own needs.
Right. Yeah. No, I love this. Oh my God. I could keep on talking to you about this. It could lead for so much, but no, I love this.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. I mean, thank you for sharing like this vulnerable moment in your life. And I just want to say like how proud I am of you, of where you're at now. Like I would have never known if you wouldn't have shared this, like where you are
Thank
in the
you.
darkest times. And I feel like so many people think like everybody is picture perfect and they have it all
Right.
together, especially with social media now. So like you sharing this, like I know it's gonna like you're gonna be those moments for someone else and be like, I needed to hear that. You know,
Yeah,
it
I
could
hope
be
I hope so. I mean, I know I felt led to share it for a reason. So that's that. I mean, because it's scary to me to put that out there only just because I don't want to face the backlash from, ex-in-laws. But it is what it is. And I hope that it does help somebody because that's been my biggest stress since all of this is just my baby. But like I just had to learn how to separate myself from that and just take it one day at a time. But
Mhm,
that's what we have to do anyway. Like
mhm,
there's a reason that you hear this saying over and over and over because yesterday isn't getting you anywhere and tomorrow isn't getting you anywhere. You have to be intentional. You have to be present. You have to live in the moment because guess what? The world is really fucking scary. There are a lot of things happening on any given day, lots of given moments. How are you going to be your best self regardless of all this?
mhm.
Because it's changing every day, but so are you. So, how can you show up as your best self whoever that is in that moment? My best looks different day to day. I actually have been very relieved because the last week I wake up and I'm not so tired. My baby graduated and I don't have that stress on me anymore, but my
Mhm.
body was so tired for so many months,
I just
and I just
imagine.
kept doing what I knew to do, like I started walking. Like how can I get myself some energy? But
Mhm.
it was not thinking about the future. It was how can I make this moment
Right,
count?
this
Because
exact
I
moment.
matter. Yeah, I
Mhm.
matter so much. And my experience on this earth matters. And I'm no matter if it was my fault that my child did this thing, I'm still worthy of a really happy existence on this planet, but I'm the only one responsible for that. So that's the thing. You just get very narrow on your focus,
Mhm.
very narrow on your decisions, just right here. What
What?
do I have right in front of me? And that's how you get very attuned to your intuition too. What's
Mhm.
that next step? Okay, what's the next step? Get very comfortable with not knowing what three steps from now are, because
Mhm.
the second you think that you do, it's all crumbling around you anyway. So every
100%.
time I think I have a plan, it goes to shit. So I just
Yep.
learned like, okay, surrender, great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. This is so good. So thank you so much, Melissa. Everyone listening or watching this, if you guys have any questions for her, make sure to put them in the comments. I'm going to put your contact information also in the description if you guys want to continue following Melissa's journey. And I recommend you do because I just love her. Honest, raw, like it's just like if you want someone authentic, follow Melissa, listen to her podcast. Like I just love your conversations and how honest it is. And like just like you mentioned, being your podcast, like I felt so seen in that moment that you shared. So I know everybody else will too. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I've loved it. I love you, and I appreciate you having me on.
If today's conversation spoke to you, don't forget to follow the show and leave a review. It would mean the world to me. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button and you'll know when the next episode drops. Also, leave your questions and any biggest takeaways in the comments. I'll love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.